everybody. So I wanted to talk about earnest money. What is earnest money? So anytime you buy a house, anytime you're interested in buying a house, one of the first things you have to do is fill out a purchase agreement. Well, okay, so you've done that already. Well, on the purchase agreement, it says how much money you're going to give as earnest money. And if it's the first time you bought a house, you may not understand what earnest money is. So let me go ahead and just give you a quick definition-ish. Earnest money is your way of saying, here is some money to say that I really am going to go through with this contract. Typically, what I do when I invest in real estate, I usually put about $1,000 down as earnest money, depending on the price of the house. Let's say I was buying a house for $500,000, I'd probably put somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 down. If, however, I was going to put down, if I was going to buy a house, for instance, a duplex I bought for $25,000, I could put $100 down. Typically, I'll put $1,000 down, though. I have had times where I've sold a house where I got a buyer who gave me $1 as the earnest money. It really doesn't matter how much money you put down. Earnest money, the whole point is to say, I really want to go through with this contract. And in some states, it's actually illegal to have a contract without earnest money involved in regards to real estate. And I'll let you go ahead and do your research on your state to see if that's one of yours. So you have to give something of value. It doesn't even have to be money. You have something of value to be your earnest money. Now, the way it works is, let's say I put down $1,000 on as an earnest money toward a $25,000 duplex. And yes, they do exist. Look in Michigan and Ohio and the northeastern United States. You'll see $20,000, $25,000 properties. I've owned them for decades. So, and I just sold one for $35,000 a couple weeks ago. So they exist. So somebody put $1,000 down as earnest money. What happens at closing is that $1,000 goes toward the money that you have to put down to finish off your down payment. So let's say that my down payment on a $25,000 duplex is $5,000. If I put $1,000 down as earnest money, I don't have to come up with that $1,000 again. It actually gets applied toward the fees or toward the down payment of my purchase. So instead of having to come up with the $5,000, I only have to come up with the $4,000 because I've already given them the $1,000 from the beginning with the earnest money. Now, what happens if I want to back out of the deal? So quite often people will put in contingencies to say, if I inspect the property and I find termites or problems with electrical or problems with HVAC or problems with plumbing or problems with foundation or whatever it is, I don't like the color paint. It allows you to back out of the property, right? Those are the contingencies. The earnest money goes back to the buyer the majority of the time. However, there are times when, let's say you had a contingency, you signed off on the contingency saying, nah, I don't need it anymore. I'm ready to buy the property. If you did that, and all of a sudden you say, I went out of the property. It's completely up to the seller whether they release that earnest money back to you or not. If they release it, good, cool, good for you as the buyer. If you're the seller, you can say, okay, I'll give it to you. It's not worth the trouble. There are lawsuits all over the United States, people trying to get their earnest money back when the seller and the buyer don't see eye to eye. For instance, I'll give you an example. I have family that was trying to buy a property, and the seller was all gung-ho about selling the property to him until the appraisal came in. The appraisal came in much higher than the asking price, the purchase price. Well, the seller's seeing, look at how much cash I'm losing. So they turned up and said, no, we don't want to sell it to you. Okay, we'll give you my earnest money. And sometimes they say, well, I don't want to give it back. And then you have to sue to get it back. So it's just terrible sellers in that case. In my case, every time that a buyer has backed out, I've given them the earnest money back. Every time I've backed out as a buyer, I've tried to always do it where it would be no issue in the seller giving me my money back. And in reality, that $1,000 isn't in the seller's hands. It's actually in the hands of the escrow company. So if this person is the seller. This person's the buyer. I'm the thing in the middle. So this person, the seller, says,
"Hey, I want your earnest money."
I say,
"No, I'm backing out."
and then what happens is the escrow company says, who's backing out for what reason? You're backing out? Then they get their money. And the buyer says,
"Thank you very much."
and then I, as escrow, say, here, buyer, take the money. If they say,
"I want the earnest money."
I want the earnest money. Well, who's backing out? The buyer's backing out? What was in the contract for the earnest money?
"It's to go to me."
It's to go to me. Well, based on the contract, it says you don't have any contingencies anymore. You signed off, so you don't get the money. The seller gets the money. And that's what happens sometimes. So there are ways that a seller can have it under contract to sell, and the buyer wants to back out. And the only way to back out is for the buyer to say, keep my earnest money. So that happens too. So I wanted to keep you informed on that. Oh, what is earnest money? It's the money you're putting down to lock that property as yours to buy, while escrow figures out all the paperwork to get title transferred from this guy to this guy while you get loans and all that stuff. So hope you enjoyed that. If you have any questions regarding real estate investing, please feel free to ask. I've been doing this since 2003, so it's been 14 years as of this filming, almost 15 years actually, because it's almost 2018. But please ask down below. If you want to subscribe, I really don't care, but I'm here to help you out as far as your questions in real estate investing. And if you want to subscribe, it's because you want to learn more, and I'm going to teach you more. So enjoy your day. Happy New Year.